He walked into court accused of the unthinkable, killing his wife and two young children. But instead of tears, fear, or even regret, he did something no one could explain. He smiled. A chilling grin that froze the entire courtroom and left everyone wondering, why would a man smile after murdering his own family? Tonight, we dive into the disturbing story of Daniel Harper, the so-called smiling killer, and uncover the truth behind one of the darkest cases you'll ever hear. Stay with me, because once you hear why, you'll never forget it. It was the kind of smile that didn't belong in a courtroom. A grin, wide, confident, almost playful, stretched across his face as the judge read out the charges, the brutal murder of his wife and two young children. Reporters scribbled furiously, cameras flashed, and the audience gasped. But the man at the center of it all? He leaned back, smiled, and seemed to enjoy the spectacle, as if the deaths of his family were nothing more than a twisted joke. This is the story of how a seemingly normal husband and father transformed into a cold-blooded killer, and why, even in the face of his darkest crime, he smiled. On the outside, Daniel Harper was the very picture of stability. He lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind where people left their doors unlocked and waved at each other on Sunday mornings. He worked as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, known by colleagues as reliable, maybe even a little boring. At home, neighbors often saw him mowing the lawn while his two children played in the yard. His wife, Emily, was active in the community, organizing school fundraisers and attending church every week. By all appearances, the Harpers were the family everyone else wanted to be. But behind closed doors, cracks were forming, cracks that no one could see until it was too late. Emily confided in a close friend that Daniel had grown increasingly distant. He spent long nights in his office poring over numbers that didn't seem to add up. Financial trouble loomed, though Daniel kept it hidden from almost everyone. When Emily confronted him, he brushed her off, but his temper began to flare more often. He snapped at the children over small mistakes. He withdrew from friends, and at some point, something inside him broke. Investigators later discovered that Daniel had taken out a massive life insurance policy on his family. The timing of this discovery would haunt detectives because it was approved just weeks before the killings. It was a rainy Tuesday when everything unraveled. Emily had put the kids to bed early. She was in the kitchen cleaning up when Daniel walked in, carrying something heavy wrapped in cloth. No one knows exactly what was said in those final moments, but the evidence paints a chilling picture. Emily was attacked first, struck with a blunt object before she could scream. The kids, just 8 and 10 years old, were found in their beds. Authorities believe Daniel stood over them as they slept, making sure they would never wake up. The crime was methodical, deliberate, and shockingly brutal. After the murders, Daniel attempted to stage the house as if it had been burglarized. Drawers were pulled out, valuables scattered, but nothing was taken. It was sloppy, almost as if he didn't care whether anyone believed it. What he didn't expect was how quickly the police would zero in on him. Fingerprints were everywhere. The staged burglary was obvious, and worst of all, Daniel couldn't account for his movements that night. His alibi fell apart within hours. When detectives brought him in for questioning, he didn't cry. He didn't panic. Instead, he asked for coffee, leaned back in his chair, and, according to one officer, actually smirked. The town was shaken to its core when news broke that Daniel Harper had been arrested for the murders of his wife and children. Neighbors who once waved at him from across the street were now standing in front of TV cameras, describing how he always seemed normal and we never thought he was capable of this. But behind bars, Daniel showed no remorse. He spoke casually about his family as if they were strangers. When asked why he did it, he shrugged and said, "People die every day." It was this chilling detachment that would later make his trial one of the most disturbing the county had ever seen. When the trial began, the courtroom was packed. Journalists, curious onlookers, and grieving relatives filled the benches. Everyone wanted to see the man who had killed his entire family, and everyone wanted answers. But Daniel gave them none. He sat at the defense table with an eerie calmness, occasionally flashing that same unsettling smile. When gruesome crime scene photos were shown, he leaned forward, almost studying them like art. When the prosecutor described the final moments of his wife and children, Daniel tilted his head and grinned, as if the details amused him. The jury watched in disbelief. The families of Emily and the children broke down in tears, but Daniel never once showed sorrow. The defining moment came when the verdict was read. Guilty of first-degree murder on all counts. The courtroom erupted in emotion, gasps, sobs, whispers. But Daniel? He smiled. It wasn't the nervous smile of a man facing a lifetime in prison. It wasn't the defiant smile of someone protesting innocence. It was the smile of a man who had long since stopped caring about right or wrong. A smile that suggested he had finally gotten what he wanted: attention, control, power. That single grin would be plastered across newspapers, replayed on news channels, and burned into the memory of everyone who saw it. Psychologists who later studied Daniel's case suggested he may have suffered from narcissistic personality disorder, perhaps even psychopathy. His financial troubles, combined with his cold detachment, may have led him to view his family not as loved ones, but as burdens. Obstacles standing between him and the life he thought he deserved. The life insurance policy raised further questions. Was this always about money? Or was it simply about control? We may never know for sure, because Daniel never explained. He never apologized. He never cried. He only smiled.
Daniel Harper was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. He spends his days in a maximum security prison where guards say he remains quiet, polite, and still prone to smiling at inappropriate moments. The house where the murders took place has long since been sold, but neighbors say no one stays there for long. Some claim it feels cursed, haunted by the memory of what happened inside. As for the community, they still struggle with the same haunting question. How could a man who seemed so normal, so ordinary, slaughter the very people who loved him most? Perhaps the most terrifying part of this story is that there may never be a clear answer. Daniel Harper will spend the rest of his life behind bars, but his smile in court will haunt us forever. And sadly, he's not the only one. There are killers out there whose crimes are even darker, stranger, and far more shocking than his. In my next story, we'll uncover a case where the killer didn't just smile in court. They laughed. Make sure you subscribe now because you won't want to miss what comes next.